Good afternoon. Welcome to Imagine the Futures, a sneak peek of the Futures exhibition at the Arts and Industries Building, reopening this November. My name is Ashley Meadows. I'm the Director of Education and Visitor Experience at the Smithsonian Arts and Industries Building. I am a white woman in her 30s with short, dark brown, curly hair. Behind me is a white wall and a bookshelf.
Hi, I'm Hannah Osborne. I'm the lead product specialist at the Smithsonian Science Education Center. I am also a white woman with light brown hair straight past my shoulders. I'm sitting in a room with white walls and a collage of picture frames behind me.
Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to start by sharing some goals for this sneak peek session. We hope by the end of our time together this afternoon that you get excited about futures, excited to visit, excited to share with your students, excited to share with your friends and family. We also hope you understand why it's important to imagine the future. Why do we make this map for the future together? And we also want you to learn what resources we have available for you and your students. Before we dive into the exhibition preview, I'd like for each of us to reflect on the following question. How do you feel about being able to create a hopeful, sustainable future? There'll be a poll popping up on your screen, and we hope that you share your reaction with us. I'm going to start with a video introduction to futures. It's about 2 minutes long.
What do you think about when you think of the future?
Sometimes the future feels like a train rushing towards me. I worry about the environment, global conflicts, increasing inequality, and the political polarization that is tearing us apart.
I don't know, the future could be great. We could cure diseases and heal our planet with new technologies. Through activism, we could improve our government and our society. We could get better at understanding each other and cooperating. Everyone could be healthy and safe.
And drive flying cars and jetpacks and live on Mars with robots that make us breakfast?
Visionaries and storytellers throughout history have shared their versions of the future. Many people thought they knew what tomorrow would bring, but no one can know for sure.
We're living in a time of uncertainty that's revealed to us what's important, necessary, and truly valuable. In this moment, we have an opportunity to reflect on what it means to create a future together, one that we imagine, build, and speak into existence. Not one single vision, but many possible futures.
Welcome to the Arts and Industries Building at the Smithsonian Institution, which for more than 100 years has been a destination for big ideas that change the world. This fall, we invite you to join us for Futures, a new kind of museum experience that joins the past and the future, joins science, technology, art, and design to explore what lies ahead. Part exhibition, part festival, part conversation. Futures ask you to imagine not the future you fear, but the future you want.
What do you think about when you think of the futures?
So you'd be forgiven if you aren't familiar with the Smithsonian Arts and Industries Building, or affectionately AIB for short. It's largely been closed to the public since 2004, save for a handful of events. But it's really been around for quite a long time. The Smithsonian Arts and Industries Building opened in 1881 as the National Museum of the United States. After the Smithsonian Castle, it's the second Smithsonian building. It was modeled after Great World's Fair pavilions. Its soaring halls showcased ideas about to change the world: Edison's light bulb, Apollo rockets, and the first airplane. Much more than a museum, AIB was a catalyst for innovation that drove a young nation forward. It also marked the Smithsonian's choice to turn outwards to the nation. Not purely a research institution, it now had a civic space to share big ideas. If you've had the pleasure to visiting the National Mall, you may have seen us. We look a bit like the Smithsonian Castle, and we're located right next door. The carousel is in front of us, and the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden is our neighbor to the east. AIB has a long history as a hub for innovation, ingenuity, and big ideas. It's shared some incredible innovations. Here are a few images from our archive. On the left, a chemistry lab in AIB in the early 1900s. Below, the Spirit of St. Louis hanging in our halls in the 1930s. And on the right, students get a very close look at a moon rock just 6 weeks after the first moon landing in 1969. After a century of exhibiting Smithsonian marvels, the building was overtaken with offices and storage spaces. It closed in 2004 due to structural concerns. But after necessary repairs, we are ready to open our doors once again to be a hub for big ideas, agency, and a hope for the future. Here are some photos of our recent empty space waiting to be filled with Futures coming this November. What is Futures? It's a multidisciplinary exhibition that asks, where are we going and how do we want to get there? The future is not a fact, it's a decision. This exhibition encourages us to embrace our own role, both as individuals and collectively, in shaping what's to come. Futures is not a prediction. We don't claim to be able to predict the future, but we are presenting many possible futures through a lens of hope and optimism. While we aim to inspire and dream, we're not shying away from difficult questions and challenges, but hope to shift a sense of powerlessness into agency and to chart pathways to a more equitable, peaceful, and sustainable world. Why did we create Futures and why is it important? The future can sometimes feel bleak. Many people feel that we have no power to shape the future beyond our close relationships and our close worlds. But you all as teachers know deeply about shaping the future. Being able to imagine future scenarios in as much detail as possible is closely tied to the sense of agency we have in achieving that future. Carl Sagan said, "The visions we offer our children change the future. It matters what those visions are. Dreams are maps." We think about this quotation a lot and how we may be able to offer, inspire future visions. If you can see it, maybe you can get there. So what comes to mind when you think of the future? Feel free to drop some of your answers in the chat. Is it robots? Augmented reality? High-speed transportation? Artificial intelligence? New types of communities? Greater efficiency? Improved quality of life with affordable at-home health solutions? Or adventure? This is just a small sampling of the types of historical objects, new technology, and artistic visions you'll find in Futures. Next, I'm going to take you on a walk through the 4 halls and the guiding themes of the exhibition. When you enter the front doors of AIB, you'll find yourself in the North Hall titled Past Futures. It's an exploration of past visions of the future, drawn from Smithsonian collections and research. Discover innovative ideas of past generations. What did we get right? Where did we go wrong? Who is included in the future? And we recognize that we are joining a long line of future makers. Moving into our West Hall, you'll find Futures that work. This hall focuses on possible solutions, ways of making a healthier, happier world. Should we slow down, use our resources more efficiently, focus on sustainability? Many strategies have vital parts to play in our collective next chapter. From the West Hall, you can move around and enter the South Hall, which is called Futures That Unite. In that hall, we ask, what will it take for us to live more equitably, peacefully, inclusively? This hall explores how we relate to one another. It explores new ways to connect and collaborate that aim for all the same goal, to tap into our collective humanity. As our future dreams turn into reality, perhaps we should place the greatest value on one another. Continuing to the East Hall, Futures That Inspire, asks, what happens if we approach the future with the spirit of play? Futures that inspire will encourage you to think adventurously about what might lie ahead. In the brave world of the future, what seems impossible today may become totally commonplace tomorrow. Imagine new materials, new foods, new species, or even consider life underwater or on another planet. A literal and figurative centerpiece of the exhibition is Me Plus You by Suchi Reddy in AIB's Central Rotunda. Technology has brought us great knowledge, but it is how we use it that matters. Weaving human wisdom and intelligent technology together, Suchi Reddy's interactive artwork, Me Plus You, is an emblem for positive future of coexistence with technology. Reddy invites you to speak a single word describing your hope for the future into the cloud base of me and you at designated points. These words and the emotions with which they are spoken are translated through machine learning into precise colors and patterns using an algorithm specially designed for this installation. Visitors' collective vision for the future is displayed as a digital artifact at the Sculpture Center. Now that you've had a brief introduction to the exhibition and our guiding questions, we'd like to share some resources crafted for you and your students. Young people are the generation most concerned about our climate and environment, and creating a more sustainable world is one of our greatest challenges. Futures includes a great number of possible, hopeful visions for a more sustainable life. Over 1/4 of the content in the exhibition addresses sustainability through energy, materials, food, agriculture, and artistic visions. And in an exhibition about the future, there's a lot of ground to cover. So the volume of sustainability solutions speaks to the importance of this collective challenge. So we've partnered with our colleagues at the Smithsonian Science Education Center to craft ways to share these visions with a more sustainable future, for a more sustainable future with young audiences, particularly those around middle school years. So now I'll turn the stage over to Hannah Osborne, who will share the resources with you that we have for you and your students.
Thanks, Ashley. Hello again, everyone. The Smithsonian Science Education Center is a formal education center and unit within the Smithsonian. Our mission is to transform K-12 education through science in collaboration with communities across the globe. And we do that in a number of ways. We create curriculum, publish digital games and simulations, and lead leadership and professional development trainings. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about 3 resources that we partnered with AIB to create for Futures. The first is Citizen Science and Park Planner. The Citizen Science area of the exhibit is a center for young audiences within Futures, and Park Planner is a hands-on game that you can play in this section of the exhibit. The field guide for Sustainable Futures is a printed guide that you can use when at AIB visiting Futures, and is also available digitally. I believe Alex is going to put that in the chat now, and that will be the link that you can find all of these resources, and I will reference it multiple times going forward. And finally, the Teacher Toolkit for Sustainable Futures is a group of lessons and activities based on Futures that you can use in your classroom. They are NGSS aligned and Common Core aligned as well. All right, starting off with the Citizen Science area of Futures, it is located in the South Hall of AIB in the section titled Futures That Unite. We've created a space for families and young visitors to engage in a hands-on activity, explore science careers, learn about citizen science, and play a game that allows them to balance the ecological needs of a space as well as the human needs in the same space. This image is showing a rendering of the exhibit and where it is in the hall, and in the inset you can see an illustration of the wall space that is gray in the rendering. Right? And looking at that wall, you can see that we have a definition for citizen science, and it really wants to bring that idea to young people. It then looks at 3 specific citizen science projects from the Smithsonian. Neighborhood Nest Watch is done by the National Zoo and engages students and citizen scientists to share banded bird sightings from their neighborhood or their backyard. Fossil Atmospheres is run through the National Museum of Natural History as well as Smithsonian Environmental Research Center. And they use ginkgo leaves to trace how the atmosphere has changed over time and invite citizen scientists to examine images of cells in ginkgo leaves to help their research. And finally, eMammal, you can see the really cute deer photo in the center of the screen, is organized by scientists across the Smithsonian to study animal populations using camera traps. And they ask citizen scientists to go onto their website and help them in identifying the animals seen in these pictures. The exhibit also highlights 4 scientists or science careers. You can see them across the bottom of the image: a horticulturalist, a transportation engineer, an urban planner, and a conservation ecologist. They each have speech bubbles, so they're telling the visitor what they do and how it relates to sustainability. And finally, the wall has an illustration of Park Planner. And this is a food chain with a beetle, a robin, and a fox, as well as their habitats. And it's used in the game to help plan where the human objects can go to save that food chain. Right, and on the tables in this space is Park Planner, the game. So you see a picture of it here. It is specifically designed for futures, and the visitor takes the place of an urban planner, and it is making decisions where to put those 3D objects on the map while preserving the animal habitats. Then the visitor can add the score and determine how well they did based on how close the score is together. Now we're going to look at a game of the Park Planner, a video of gameplay of Park Planner. So you can see the person is placing all of these objects. Some of the smaller objects like that blue one and the orange one are a little easier to fit on the green space without covering an animal habitat. Some of the larger ones need to be moved or spun around to try to avoid as much as possible. Then after each object is placed, the player will go ahead and count up the animal habitats on the green slide counter. You can see that person is filling those in. And the points of the animal habitats are both on the board as well as in the key at the bottom. Then when they've done that, they do the same thing for the human objects, and the scores for the human objects are printed on them as well as in the key. And then finally, the player will compare, and this player did really well because those scores were very even. So taking a little closer look at that game board, we can see there are actually 4 different maps in Park Planner. So you have 4 different simulations, and they each have their own 3D printed objects to go with them. And they are a park, a playground, a plaza, and an intersection. And also on the game board, there are game instructions and scoring instructions to give you an idea of how to play so you don't have to remember it from today. And there's also a key of the human features listing what they are, as well as their point scale, and the animal habitats listing what they are and their points. So the 3D models, which are very cool, were designed to encourage future thinking about what our shared community space would look like in years to come. This one here is a citizen science desk. So in our vision, we thought there would be communal spaces for people to help researchers with community science. They're also in a solar punk style. So you can see you've got that honeycomb solar cell, and the desk itself incorporates other objects of the Futures exhibit. The mushroom bricks are the supports of the desk, and it has a geodesic dome as well. And these 3D models are available in the link that was put in the chat earlier as well, so that you can download a software to manipulate them. Your students can redesign, add color, do whatever they want. And if you have a 3D printer, you could print them yourselves. All right, our second resource is the Field Guide to Sustainable Futures. And this is a printed booklet that guides young visitors through futures with a lens of sustainability. And it's designed in this fun detective style. So we really want them to interact with it, jot notes, write, draw, kind of put as much information as they can from their head onto the paper. It's designed for middle school students, but you know your students better than we do. We think it could go a little higher or a little older as far as age range. Try it out. When you're in the Futures Hall, you can pick it up at the welcome desk. You can also download it from that same website and use it in class or bring it yourself to the exhibit. So in this guide, we want it to be interactive, and it starts off with really thinking about what sustainability is and what it means to be a future maker. So we're going to take a second. This is an activity from very early in the guide, and we're hoping to empower young audiences to chart pathways to a more sustainable future and really ask themselves what makes them a future maker. So go ahead and take a look at some of these or create your own and throw in ideas into the chat. What makes you a future maker? And I think with teachers, you have a really, you already are a step ahead of everybody else, being able to mold young minds. So go ahead and throw those into chat, and I'll keep going, and feel free to keep adding things as I go. Right, so this is one of the pages from the guide, and it helps navigate through the 4 halls that Ashley talked about earlier. This happens to be the Futures Past. It has a couple different sections on it. The first is the hall theme and introduction. So really just the background of what the hall is there for. Then a guiding question of sustainability. So what should the young person be thinking about as they're going through this hall when it comes to sustainability? And then these object hints. So for each hall in the guide, we've highlighted 2 objects in each hall, and we give them hints of like what to look for before they get to those object pages. Right? And each object page provides some information and some context of the exhibit item itself. It has a nice little illustration, and then it talks about how this object is related to sustainability. Then you have the section of looking and thinking questions. So we really want students to look really detailed at the exhibit item, not just kind of pass by it. So these questions help guide that. And then we have this reflective and creative vision section. Again, we really want scribbling, jotting, noting, dreaming of what they envision the future or ideas how they could change the future. So every page has this space for them to get their ideas out. The third resource we have for you as teachers is the Teacher Toolkit for Sustainable Futures. And this is a standards-aligned, object-centered, sustainability-focused compilation of lessons and activities for a classroom. And it's kind of a companion to the field guide in the sense that it has the same objects featured, but it really gets into a deeper, more science-focused view of futures as an exhibit. It was created again with middle school students in mind, but could be used for older and younger audiences based on how you feel your students are doing. And the goal is really to enhance an experience of an in-person visit or to bring the idea of futures to a classroom that isn't able to visit in person. So you have this really cool exhibit, you live across the country, how can we bring it to you? This is your answer. Has objects, pictures, and the activity pages and student sheets, and those are all pages from the toolkit. All right, so the toolkit itself has 8 lessons. Each of those lessons is standards aligned. So we have next generation science standards, Common Core, and science and engineering practices called out. And then the lesson itself has 3 different sections. So there's an examine, an investigate, and a share. So in the examine, it's really getting the background information of what the sustainability question is and kind of mulling that over and understanding how that is related to the Smithsonian object from Futures. In the investigate section, that is where the NGSS hands-on activity is going to be, again, related to that sustainability question from the examine section. Then last, in the share section, we really want the student to use their knowledge that they have just learned or that they had existing and develop their idea for the future and share that with others. It gets into a very creative sharing sense of future. All right, so next we're going to do a walkthrough of one of the lessons. So each of them starts with the object that's in Futures. This one here is a fish skin purse by an artist named Elisa Palomino. And then the lesson itself, again, the examine section starts with background information on, in this case, a sustainability issue of fashion waste or clothing waste and biodegradable clothing itself. In the investigate section, we give an estimated time. Again, you can tell how if your class might need more or less time than that. We also give materials based on for the class, as well as in groups and individual students. Each lesson's a little bit different how they're broken up. Lesson objectives for what we want the students to learn by the end of the lesson. And again, those NGSS and Common Core call-outs. As the activity progresses, you get an overview and then teacher-focused procedure steps. And in those procedure steps, you can see some of the words are bold. The toolkit has a glossary, and the first time any of the glossary items are mentioned in any of the lessons, they are bolded. This one specifically has a step that tells you to look at the glossary items. Some others don't have that. There's also a link there to Learning Lab. We're going to talk about Learning Lab in just a second. And then finally, the share section. So again, you have procedural steps for the share section, as well as linked to Learning Lab. Each of these lessons has activity sheets for the students. This one is from the investigate section. And then this is doing a score tally of looking at different clothing items and seeing what kind of fabrics they're made out of and where those fabrics came from. This is the second activity sheet for the investigate section, looking at common materials and seeing what their sustainability issues may be. And then finally, the share one. Again, these are the fun and very artistic versions. So this is asking students to design futuristic fashion using sustainable textiles. One of those sustainable textiles being the fish skin that is in the Futures exhibit. All right, so Learning Lab, as I mentioned in the last slide, is a Smithsonian free interactive platform where you can discover millions of authentic digital resources, create content using online tools, and share Smithsonian's expansive community of knowledge and learning. Within Learning Lab, you can create collections using Smithsonian resources. We have created 4 for the toolkit itself, and so the lesson we just looked at is one of those 4. This is the Learning Lab collection for that lesson. And you can see that Sustainable Ideas for Fashion actually has Elisa Palomino's website. So you can see more of her designs or see her technique. Then it moves into Smithsonian objects that are in our collection. So from Native American Museum and Natural History, we have salmon and other fish skin objects of clothing. And also this collection has a video series from Alaska Native artists who do sewing videos of fish skin and in the native ways. There are direct links to these collections from the website that has all of the materials for Futures resources, and it's also hyperlinked from the PDF. So where can you find everything? This is the really important question. This is the link to everything. So you have the teacher toolkit, the field guide to sustainable futures, high resolution images of the futures objects, links to the learning lab pages, and of course the 3D objects. So all of those files can be found at that link. They are live now, so you could go today and download everything if you wanted to. So this is where you can find us. My information's at the bottom, Ashley's is at the top, and I will pass it back to her.
I encourage you to find us online, follow along, go to AIB's website. You can sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social. If you have any questions later after this session, you can send them to aibinfo@si.edu. And all the updates will be coming through those channels. So now I'd like to revisit this question again and ask you to reflect on how you feel about being able to create a hopeful, sustainable future. And we're going to pop that poll back up. All right. So I hope that you all have some questions for us. We definitely have time to chat. So I'm here to answer. Are there any questions in the Q&A? I see one question. When is the launching of this supposed to occur? I'm assuming that this is maybe these resources that we've just shared. You can find them now. They are live. The exhibition will open in November, but if you want a sneak preview of the teacher and student resources, you can find them on the SSEC site. Futures is coming in November. Stay tuned for more details soon. Again, I encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter or follow us on social to get all the updates. Okay, one question. Could you speak about the sculpture model to outcome of micro robotics? What are the ethical guidelines for students about research and innovation for the teacher toolkit? Maybe Hannah could come on and maybe speak about that, if it's included or not.
We don't get into a lot of the ethical guidelines about research and innovation. We do more focus on what can be done in a smaller setting, and what can be done in a classroom. So how students can affect their daily lives, as far as, I'm trying to think, some of them are carbon emissions. They calculate their carbon footprint. Others are looking at what their clothing is and things like that. So it's much more on a personal level what they can do instead of the larger research question, but that's a great question.
Great. Okay, our next question is, will these activities be available for all learners, including those with special needs, hard of hearing, and/or deaf students? Yes, certainly. These activities are all things that can happen with families, with teachers, for all, as one is willing and interested to participate. We are thinking a lot about accessibility for futures, and in the future, the museum is for everybody. And so we are putting quite a bit of effort into making our exhibition as accessible as possible.
And one addition to that, as far as the toolkit itself, is we did try to make it as materials light as possible because of the constant changes with teaching right now, possibly going virtual, or some people still are virtual. We did make it so that most of the activities can be done with materials around the house or materials that you already have in your classroom. We didn't want to add a huge burden to go finding difficult materials.
Thanks, Hannah. Our next question is, excuse me, will there be a virtual exhibit version of Futures? It depends on what you mean by virtual, of course. If you go to our website now, aib.si.edu, you're already going to find a lot of content and be able to see a bunch of the interesting objects that we're going to have on view. There will also be virtual programs. So programs that happen either exclusively virtually or programs that happen in our space will also be available virtually. Next question is, will people need reservations to visit? No. You are the master of your own destiny, and we hope that you come when you are able. You mentioned that the software for the 3D printed objects are available for teachers to use. Where can we access the software? Is it correct that we could also encourage students to use the software to adapt the 3D printed objects?
Absolutely. So the objects themselves were created in a software called Blender. There are multiple free softwares for 3D objects that can let students manipulate the type of file that it is. I highly suggest that people try to manipulate it, break it, change it, add something, really add their version of the future to something that we had fun designing. But yeah, you can do pretty much anything with them. When you transfer it to a 3D printer, if they were going to do that, it will tell you if something in your design isn't able to be printed. And so it's a really good engineering process of trial and error and saying, this is our first iteration and maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. So it's a great learning experience.
Great. Our next question is, what grades are these activities designed for? We designed all of these with middle school students in mind. And they, particularly the teacher's toolkit, the standards are aligned to 6th through 8th grade standards. However, we do think that it could be expanded on either end of that spectrum. So maybe you have some 4th or 5th graders that you think this would work great for, maybe a 9th grader. So really in that middle range. Okay, I see another question. Gloria says, the reason I asked the question of ethical guidelines in research and innovation is starting earlier for students to make ethical guidelines a habit when students enter older grades. Innovation, tech enterprises, and technology companies. I think that's super interesting and important to think about. We are kind of collectively pretty new at a lot of this, and we are thinking about how we prepare our next generations to better handle these problems. I'll say that one thing that Futures does is very interested in these questions. There's not a single answer, and I think you'll find it kind of spread out amongst a number of objects and artist visions about who gets to be in, who gets to be in the future, who do we leave behind, how do we make sure that everyone is included, and how do we make sure that we're doing it in the right way? And we don't have an answer, but we are asking the questions. Okay. One more question. I love how your students count their points for the park planner game so that they can see if they were able to balance the needs of humans and the needs of park animals and plants. Can teachers have students play this same park planner in their class?
That is a great question. Park Planner is actually one of the lessons in the toolkit. So there's a paper version that you can print out and cut out the shapes of the pieces, so they don't look exactly like the 3D objects, but there's a page that shows what the 3D objects look like next to the shape that you can cut out and play with. So it's a little more like Tetris on paper, but yes, you can. And I believe you can download that also on the website.
Okay. So once again, here's where to find us. I encourage you to stay in touch. AIB and Futures, we're going to be sharing a lot more information about the exhibition as we approach its opening in November. And we encourage you to share your thoughts and feedback on the session through the survey. There's a survey button. And I really want to thank you all for joining us. I hope to see you at AIB this fall and into next spring and early summer. And I also want to give many thanks to the organizers of this great, fantastic day. So thank you all. Have a great weekend.